प्रातः स्मरामि हृदि संस्फुरदात्मतत्त्वम् सच्चित्सुखं परमहं सगतिं तुरीयम् यत्स्वप्नजागरसुषुप्तमवैति नित्यं तद्ब्रह्म निष्कलमहं न च भूतसङ्गः तपोभिक्षीणपापानां शान्तानां वीतरागिणां मुमुक्षूणामपेक्षोऽयम् आत्मबोधो विधीयते। बोधोऽन्यसाधनेभ्यो हि साक्षान्मोक्षैकसाधनं पाकस्य वह्निवज्ञानं विना मोक्षो न सिद्ध्यति। We'll chant from verses 24 all the way to the end, 24 to 29 of chapter 5. योऽन्तः सुखोऽन्तरारामः तथान्तज्योतिरेव यः स योगी ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं ब्रह्मभूतोऽधिगच्छति। योऽन्तः सुखोऽन्तरारामः तथान्तज्योतिरेव यः स योगी ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं ब्रह्मभूतोऽधिगच्छति। लभन्ते ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं ऋषयः क्षीणकल्मषाः छिन्नद्वैताः यतात्मानः सर्वभूतहिते रताः। लभन्ते ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं ऋषयः क्षीणकल्मषाः छिन्नद्वैता यतात्मानः सर्वभूतहिते रताः। कामक्रोधवियुक्तानां यतीनां यतचेतसाम् अभितो ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं वर्तते विदितात्मनाम्। कामक्रोधवियुक्तानां यतीनां यतचेतसाम् अभितो ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं वर्तते विदितात्मनाम्। स्पर्शान् कृत्वा बहिर्बाह्यां चक्षुश्चैवान्तरे भ्रुवोः प्राणापानौ समौ कृत्वा नासाभ्यन्तरचिरायणौ। स्पर्शान् कृत्वा बहिर्बाह्यान् चक्षुश्चैवान्तरे भ्रुवोः प्राणापानौ समौ कृत्वा नासाभ्यन्तरचारिणौ। We'll chant that again. स्पर्शान् कृत्वा बहिर्बाह्यं चक्षुश्चैवान्तरे भ्रुवोः प्राणापानौ समौ कृत्वा नासाभ्यन्तरचारिणौ। यतेन्द्रियमनोबुद्धिः मुनिर्मोक्षपरायणः विगतेच्छाभयक्रोधः यः सदा मुक्त एव सः। यतेन्द्रियमनोबुद्धिः मुनिर्मोक्षपरायणः विगतेच्छाभयक्रोधः यः सदा मुक्त एव सः। भोक्तारं यज्ञतपसां सर्वलोकमहेश्वरं सुहृदं सर्वभूतानां ज्ञात्वा मां शान्तिमृच्छति भोक्तारं यज्ञतपसां सर्वलोकमहेश्वरं सुहृदं सर्वभूतानां ज्ञात्वा मां शान्तिमिच्छति. Okay. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om. Hari Om.
Are there any
Hari
questions? Are there any questions? Yes, Rashmi ji.
So in the verse 23, there's in the last paragraph, it's written, whereas complete abstinence and withdrawal from the objects of desires results in suppression and repression. You become frustrated and agitated. Instead, go along with your desires, only making sure that they do not develop into a vega, force, lust, greed, avarice, craving. Only your intellect can hold back the development of such a force. It does so by directing your desires into the form of an aim, ambition, or aspiration. I would ask you to give us an example for what kind of, how do you direct these desires to form this aim, ambition, and also this is a nice, like, I like the fact that you don't need to control your desires, rather you make it lesser. But how do you exactly do it?
You need to pick up a higher desire, Ashmiji. You are doing
But I
that.
want an example.
You're teaching in Loreto. You're teaching to unprivileged children. You have already picked up a higher desire. We have to learn from you.
Okay.
Sorry for interrupting.
So, instead, go along with your desires, only making sure that they do not develop into a vega, a force, lust, greed, avarice, craving. Only your intellect can hold back the development of such a force. It does so by directing your desires into the form of an aim, ambition, or aspiration. I liked what you said. I like that he doesn't ask us to control our desires. But what did you say? I like that he doesn't ask us to control our desires, but redirect it. Redirecting your desire is the way of controlling it. Giving it a direction is the way of controlling it. See, how do you control water? You want to make sure the banks of the river are strong, right? A couple of months ago, when there was tensions between India and Pakistan, and they said we will remove the Indus Water Treaty and etc., all sorts of things. Were you familiar with that news? You remember what happened? And then they were like, where will you send the water? Because if you stop the Indus water from flowing into the other country, let's suppose that was possible, it would inundate the entire region, right? You have to direct it somewhere. So you have to build canals, right? So through building canals, through directing that water, you're able to control it. Your mind is like a body of water. Desires are nothing but thoughts are nothing but drops of water. When they collect, they become a desire. When they develop a flow, they become a desire. And that flow, uncontrolled, unregulated, undirected, goes all over the place, right? But when you direct it, you're able to control it, you're able to harness it, you're able to utilize it for whatever benefit you want to get out of it, right? So the same applies in the spiritual field. The way to control a desire, ultimately you have to overcome it. That's the ultimate goal. But the way to that ultimate goal of overcoming is not by suppressing, is not by denying yourself, is not by creating do's and don'ts. That is unintelligent. On the one hand, we have people who unintelligently indulge. Arey, life is to enjoy, man. Come on. आज नहीं करेंगे तो कब करेंगे? Once in a while that attitude is okay, but if you live every day like that, unintelligent indulgence, if you have no direction or regulation of your life's activities, it will lead you to ruin. On the other hand, people develop funny methods of abstaining from anything and everything, thinking that it will lead to some kind of growth. No, unintelligent abstinence is as bad as unintelligent indulgence. So the solution is not to abstain unintelligently, just like the solution is not to indulge unintelligently. So this middle path that he's advocating is the path of giving your desires a aim, an ambition, an aspiration. That is what will help give it a dimension, right? Otherwise, you don't know how to approach, how to achieve, how to aim. This is true for any desire, whether it's a higher desire, a mundane desire. You ask for an example, anything. You want to become educated, you want to become successful, right? You can't do it by watching endless number of YouTube videos. There's a method, there's a process, right? Now one may debate whether that process is working in today's world or not, but still some process has to be replaced by some other process. The desire for learning has to be given a direction of class 1, class 2, class 3, examination, graduation, then the next degree. There is a method to the madness, right? So simply wanting something will not make it work out. You have to pursue it, right? And pursuing it is possible only through giving it a direction, right? Now, giving it a direction helps you, no doubt, achieve your desire. But until and unless you don't give it a higher direction, what I mean by high direction, I mean you develop an unselfish goal. You develop an unselfish goal, you develop a spirit of service and sacrifice, you utilize your area of interest, your capacity, your skills for something beyond your selfish needs. That's what leads to growth, spiritual growth, right? So how does this apply to our spiritual path? He says a yogi is not someone who simply indulges nor simply abstains. If something, of course, the principle of a yogi's life is if less be possible with less. If something is not absolutely necessary, if the mind doesn't really want it, try to abstain from it. There's no need. But if there's something that really needs expression, if a desire really needs to be addressed and fulfilled, they do it not in the form of a mindless indulgence, neither do they mindlessly abstain. They give it a direction, they give it a plan, a program. So this is what he's trying to convey. This plan and programmed approach helps you attain a deeper happiness, no doubt about it.
So that is why I alluded to you. What you said, service and sacrifice. Rashmi ji is teaching unprivileged children. I came to know in Loreto House. So this has no any selfish motive for her. So we all need to really learn from that. I am not doing anything of that sort in my daily life.
That's very commendable.
So this only I was asking, like suppose our desire is to, generally our desire at this age is generally to see our children not, these people nowadays are into so many parties and food and everything. So our desire is generally to see them grow into better individuals. But how do you change that into an aim or ambition? I can't understand that. Like, it's easier to follow your own personal growth, but what about around you? How do you inspire them?
Yeah, so good example, good question. I would say that people will follow you only when you lead by example, right? So one way to plan and program this or channel this desire into an aim or a goal, right, would be to create an environment of consciousness, of health, of conscious choices, conscious living, right? Get yourself a schedule, get yourself a certain practice, be mindful, at the same time, be light-hearted, right? When you're trying to follow a healthy lifestyle, this verse is very important to understand that indulgence, you're complaining about your children's indulgence, but even abstinence is not helpful. Mindless abstinence. There has to be a middle path. So when you show people through your own example the joy of the middle path, right? Naturally, they will be attracted to it. No doubt it will take some time because when people are young, there is something called Yauvana Garvam, the arrogance of youth. The arrogance of youth is, I know it. I am okay. I'll manage it. So, Yauvana Garvam, the rare child is wise. Otherwise, most of us need to learn through stumbling and, making mistakes. That's also, it's also fine. I think I came across an example. Someone told me about, they have teenage children and certain choices that the children are making, which one could find objectionable or one could find like a problem. Different people have different opinions about it. But that parent's reaction was very heartening to me. They said this is not the first or the last time they'll do it, right? So let them learn from it. That was very heartening because when you create that environment where someone can maybe stumble, make choices they shouldn't make, and then come back to you and maybe seek your counsel or confide in you, that's creating a environment of freedom and so all these things work towards your goal of helping fulfill your desire to give your children a healthy lifestyle, right? So A, follow it yourself. B, create that environment of freedom. That's a way to, you have this desire, how do I fulfill it? It's not by sitting back and complaining. It's not by sitting back and tana maroing your children. So when you give it this planned program and that positive environment, it's bound to a simple example. My this year, after many years, or rather for the first time properly, or maybe the second time, but the first time properly, I did the Lakshmi Puja at my house on Diwali. If you knew me growing up, not that I was rebellious, but I had no interest in rituals and puja and this and that. But I commend my parents. They wanted to instill this value of a certain practice in me, but they never forced it. What do? They kept doing their practice. I took the long and winding road. It took me 20 years to come and appreciate something, and it's thoroughly enjoyable if you do it with with that shraddha. But the lesson out here is that until you do it and make yourself your own example, right, it won't work. So I'm not saying it's a guarantee. and it may take a long time, but your own example and creating that environment of non-judgment is definitely helpful, right?
So there is hope, sir.
Yeah, that's always. Anji,
Utsaji, is it right to think that you see desires are good actually, and we are on a spiritual path. We have to refine our desire. If the desire is productive, then it is a very good desire. If the desire is not productive and we don't even understand, then the desire is of no use. Because just because others are doing, then we develop a desire and then do it. I think that way. I'm sorry whether I'm right or wrong. The desire has to be defined.
yeah, that's the entire process, Omji. That I'm guessing this is Omji, although your name doesn't show up out here, but from your voice I can recognize you. So that's the entire journey, Omji. You have to turn your desires from tamasic to rajasic to sattvic, and then ultimately no desire. The journey to that desirelessness is through the refinement of desire, no doubt about it. And that happens through, I mean, the practical application is if you can have a constructive desire, that's growth, no doubt about it. Right?
Thank you.
Yeah, Prachi.
Yeah. So just continuing in the same line of thought. So we spoke about, mindless desires versus sort of channeling it to an unselfish aim or to a higher desire and ideal. So, there's a bit of a gap over here which I want to sort of understand about. Say, for example, you have a need for, I'll use an example. Say, example, you have a need for comfortable, safe transport. And at the same time, you might have a liking for cars. So, a mindless way to, sort of exercise that need would be to, say, for example, have 50 lakh rupees in your bank account or something, you go and buy a car worth 50 lakhs. So, yeah, spend a big chunk of your money over there. And, someone who's like, okay, you just need safe, comfortable, reliable transport, you get the most the cheapest car which you can, right? But I mean, and that could very well be a Maruti Wagoner or a Honda City or whatever. But yeah, and then that could apply.
Which is a spiritual car to have, huh?
Sorry, no, not which is a
Which
spiritual
is a
car to
spiritual car
have,
to
like
have? Uh,
like
a person driving a Maruti is spiritual, but a person driving anything above a Honda. What about a Volvo? Huh? Volvo.
yeah, exactly. So that is what I'm asking, right? Because there's no way you can say that, driving a Volvo or a Mercedes is like, a higher desire or a higher aim. But for someone who has enough means and beyond to afford something like that, they can't really say that it's a higher aim. But yeah, I mean, I'm fulfilling my likes within a certain boundary or something. So, but it's still not a very high ideal or something. That's what I'm asking.
See, so what's the question?
That's the question. Like, I don't.
Direct your desire for objects.
Yeah, like, is it like, there's really no way to transform that liking for car, even when you have the means, into a higher or unselfish ideal? Or
Any
into the
material
high.
object. You can't. How do you transform it?
Yeah, true. How do you translate a desire for material objects into a higher desire, right? Yeah, look, that's not possible. Pretty much, on the point, right? I mean, nobody is a sum total of sort of just material desires. Okay, so but the translation of this example has a limitation in this sense that your specific desire cannot necessarily, first and foremost, you should at least, what would make it spiritual, you should see, people treat their material objects as a reflection of their identity. That's the reality of the world we live in today. That is what is unspiritual. As if owning a certain car makes them a bigger person and owning a lesser car makes them a smaller person. But this is dunyadari, yeah? This is what the world looks at. I told you the other day, you go to Galleria Mall in a small car, no one will care. You go
Yeah.
in a Mercedes, sir, please. So this is what people value, and this is what the world also values in people. This is the sin and madness of mankind. But that's not the car's problem. That's your problem. The car is the car. You know, if you can appreciate the beautiful engineering that is a Mercedes, and you have the means to procure it, there's nothing unspiritual about it, right? So ultimately, spirituality is about developing a consciousness, developing an awareness, okay, developing a detachment. And how else will your detachment be tested unless you have actually something to be detached from? You know, not that you have to prove anything to the world, but even to yourself. How will you test your detachment? You should have something to detach from, na? So possessions are not a bad thing, and they're not necessarily a hindrance on your spiritual journey. Your possessiveness is a hindrance on your spiritual journey. Your possessiveness is anti-spiritual. So a way of divinizing your life, even through your material possessions, would be to possess them but be detached from them. Possess them but have the willingness to share them. Possess them but not think of yourself as any bigger or lesser for it. Possess them but treat yourself as a trustee, as a custodian of them. Possess them and appreciate the beauty in them rather than thinking of, oh, I own it. Right? So these are all attitudes with which you uplift your awareness rather than keep your thinking at a very gross and superficial level when it comes to material possessions. That said, the willingness to put your own material possessions in the service of others. Atithi Devo Bhava, that idea. You know, the capacity to share. You know, what is the problem is not people's indulgences. The problem is their hypocrisy. They'll spend millions and millions on themselves, but when it comes to spending on others, they'll even a couple of thousand rupees and they'll, you know, have a problem. सबका हिसाब रखेंगे. Your house is clad with the finest of marbles. Nowadays, I don't know where the best marbles are coming from. But if you have to help someone, you keep a hisab for even a couple of thousand rupees. So, when it comes to, as far as material objects are concerned, that kind of disparity, that is gross selfishness, right? You should at least be willing to do a fraction of what you enjoy for yourself, if not more for others, right? Or what is sattvic bhav when it comes to material possessions? He who is happy to enjoy the remnants of sacrifice. Let others enjoy, and whatever is left, I'm happy with that. That attitude, right, is sattvic bhav. So all these applied in the realm of your material objects, your material possessions, is spiritual.
So, but when you say that let others enjoy and you have the remnants, you might be exploited also in today's world.
Not in today's world, in every world.
Yeah. So maybe I'm talking about my world.
So what's the question? How
So
do you
then,
not get started?
what I'm trying to say that you should do the things what you're saying. That's fine.
Do it intelligently, na. No one's asking you to be a fool about it.
They say दान भी विवेक से करना चाहिए.
Do it intelligently. No one asking you to be silly about it, right? When I say let others enjoy it and you keep, you satisfy yourself with the remnants of sacrifice, it's not to simply fulfill others' whims and fancies. You're letting others enjoy it so that it elevates them, so that it helps them, right? Not so that they can take advantage of you. They're two very different things, right? So that it maybe fills them and elevates their life in some way. But if beyond the point it is not actually helping them in any way, on the other hand, if they are just, using and abusing it, then there's no point to extend that to them. Find someone else to extend it to who will appreciate it. So your attitude to share shouldn't change. It's just that you're intelligently understanding, yeah, this person is not benefiting from it. On the other hand, this person is misusing it. Sorry. Right? So intelligent charity is what is needed. But
जो सुख दे के है वो लेके नहीं होता.
no doubt.
सुख देने में ही मजा आता है. वही परमार्थ है एक्चुअली. लेने में तो अलग बात है. लेना ही सुख है. वही सुख है कि किसी को दिया, खुशी दिया, उससे बड़ा और सुख क्या हो सकता है?
Yep. Any further questions?
Thank you very much.
Welcome very much.
Helpful.
Okay. We'll try to complete the chapter today. Verse number 24. So he's been talking about the qualifications required to become a yogi, right? A sannyasi, a jnani. Please always remember, when you're talking chapter 5 of the Bhagavad Gita, always have that spiritual journey, the stages of the spiritual journey in your mind. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, how can you not know what I'm talking about? Because this is what we've talked about the entire chapter. For those of you who don't remember what I'm talking about this particular diagram, the stages of the spiritual journey. Please always have this glued to your mind, right? So he's talking about the qualifications. Last couple of verses he's been talking about the qualifications of a dhyani, a renunciate. Beyond yoga. You want to come to anywhere out here, these are the qualifications: increasing in intensity, increasing in consistency for a person, right? So last verse we said that who is able to withstand before liberation from the body the force arising from desire and anger. Someone who has consciously uplifted themselves, controlled their mind to a point where they're able to not allow a thought to metamorphose into desire and anger. We talked about verse number 62 and 63 of chapter 2. The force arising from desire, anger is the force of greed, fear, envy, jealousy, arrogance, delusion. An incredible force which each of us is subject to to some different extent, right? But a person who's able to stop, control it at the very nipping it in the bud, as they call it, right? So herein, what helps him do that? A developed intellect. A strong intellect is what helps one direct and dissipate desires. A developed intellect is one which helps a person to dismiss unnecessary thought. A developed intellect is one which helps a person choose what to cultivate and what not to cultivate. Such a person is a yogi, and that is the only way of being a happy person. I said, you may not want to be a yogi, but you certainly want to be happy, and this is the only way to happiness. No happy person has an uncontrolled mind. No person with a controlled mind is unhappy.
But sir, भगवान यहाँ पर he is a yogi and he is a happy man क्यों बोल रहे हैं? खाली he is a yogi क्यों नहीं बोल रहे हैं? Why is he inserting this happy also?
Just to clarify to you that they are the same thing. No happy man is not a yogi. No yogi is not a happy man. Just to, it's poetic. To drive home the synonymity between yogi and happy man. I don't know if synonymity is a word, but you know what I mean. The synonymous. Yogi and happy man. Now he'll shift to a conclusion, right? This is the last couple of verses where he'll conclude and he'll sort of double down on this idea of a true qualified yogi, right? Who is qualified to attain the bliss of Brahman. He'll use this term, the bliss of Brahman. Brahma Nirvanam. Brahma Nirvanam. He'll be using this word in the next couple of verses multiple times. What is Brahma Nirvanam? Brahma Nirvanam is that state of samadhi, that ultimate state of enlightenment. Who's qualified for it? He'll talk about it in the next couple of verses. Verse number 24. Yonta sukhontara ramaha tatha tajyotirevayah sayogi brahma nirvanam brahma bhutodhigacchati yonta sukhontara ramaha tathanta jyortirevayah sayogi brahma nirvanam brahma bhutodhigacchati. He who is happy within, who rejoices within, who is illumined within, that yogi alone, becoming Brahman, gains the bliss of Brahman. So to become Brahman, to gain enlightenment, to attain enlightenment, that ultimate state which you and I are here to achieve. That bliss of enlightenment is what we all seek, unbeknownst to us. We're seeking it in different ways. We are seeking it through our external pursuits, but that is what we seek. But he clarifies out here, he alone gains the bliss of Brahman, who is happy within, who rejoices within, who is illuminated within. If you're not in a state, if you're not at peace with yourself, where you are, it's very easy to be happy without. When I say without, I mean externally. But that is a conditional happiness. The happiness you and I are enjoying today, most of us, we're all in a state of relative happiness. That's why we're sitting here. If you were not in a state of relative happiness, you would not be here. You would give me a call. Sorry, sir, cannot attend today. My daughter is unwell. Sorry, something has happened out here. I'm not able to come to class. If there was something impeding your happiness, chances are you wouldn't be sitting here. Let's be honest about it. Because things are relatively okay, we are sitting here. We are relatively happy. But this relative happiness is conditional. It's conditioned by the circumstances outside. That's what it means to be happy externally. If the circumstances outside change, bye-bye happiness. So this state of being happy within, it's a very, very evolved state. A capacity to be at peace through a variety of circumstances. A state which is reached only through a great deal of wisdom. Even in the face of adversity, even in the face of a challenge, one who can stay poised, There's a beautiful image of Sri Krishna at the beginning of the war. Earlier in the Bhagavad Gita, we saw it when Arjuna was losing his state of mind, when he was becoming completely anxious. In the Bhagavad Gita, it comes. What was Lord Krishna doing? He was smiling. Slight smile. No teeth. He wasn't showing his teeth. Slight smile. Where's that capacity? Where's that peace coming from? It's coming from his wisdom. He knows exactly what's happening. He knows exactly what's going to happen. He knows exactly what Arjuna is going through. He's not sadistic. He's not getting pleasure out of it. But he has that wisdom. He can see the flow of events. He can see the past and he can project the future through that wisdom. And when you're able to do that, there's a state of happiness within. There's an independence from the circumstances outside. That's what he means by he who is happy within. Right? The state achieved through wisdom, who rejoices within, who is once again self-sufficient, rejoices within, at all times in a state of a higher awareness. Now, there are many things to complain about. I don't disagree with you. A lot of problems in this world. But when we compare them with the number of things that are actually working out, let's debate about it. But one who is constantly in a state of awareness of, yes, no doubt, the world is an admixture of pleasure and pain. The world is an admixture of things in our favor and not in our favor. But the very fact that we are sitting here in relative safety means that the scales are tilted in our favor, no doubt about it. And that creates an awareness, a joy, a gratitude, an attitude of gratitude that gives one a state of, allows one to rejoice within. Right? Again, a state coming out of awareness. He who is illumined within, one who has the deepest insight into the mechanics of life, one who is able to scan through the nature of things and beings and understand why things are the way they are, one who is able to appreciate the variety of forces that play in the world, some which are in his control, some which are not in his control. Such a person is illumined within. But the important term is within, indicating an independence from the world, indicating a simplicity. Such a person alone, that yogi alone. And this state is achieved by a yogi through a lot of yoga, through a lot of sadhana. Therefore, we must learn to emulate some of these traits to whatever extent it is possible for us. We should try to reduce our conditioning to whatever extent it's possible with us. We should try to elevate our awareness to whatever extent it's possible. The extremity of that, the perfection of that is the state of a yogi. Such a yogi alone is fit for becoming Brahman. Such a yogi alone attains Brahma Nirvanam. The term Nirvana, right? Brahma Nirvanam, the bliss of Brahman, the enlightenment of Brahman. And he continues in verse number 25. Labhante Brahma Nirvanam Rishaya Kshina Kalmashaha Chinnadvaidhaya Tatmanaha Sarvabhuta Hite Rataha. Labhante Brahma Nirvanam Rishaya Kshina Kalmashaha Chinnadvaidhaya Tatmanaha Sarvabhuta Hite Rataha. Sages attain the bliss of Brahman whose sins have been destroyed, whose dualities are destroyed, who are self-controlled, who revel in the welfare of all beings. Again, he uses the term Brahma Nirvanam, the bliss of Brahman. Sages attain that ultimate state of enlightenment, that ultimate bliss of Brahman, whose sins have been destroyed, dualities are destroyed, who are self-controlled, who revel in the welfare of all beings. Just in case you thought the previous verse was a little too abstract, just in case you thought the previous verse was a little too out of my reach, how can I rejoice within? How can I be completely independent? How can I be completely unconditioned? How can I be completely inhuman within? Maybe it seemed out of reach for you. This verse is showing you the path also. How do you reach that state? Destroy your sins, destroy your dualities, develop self-control, revel in the welfare of all beings. These are 4 yardsticks for you to measure your progress and to direct your progress. One whose sins have been destroyed. We've talked about it before. Sin means mental agitation arising out of a reaction to your actions. When your actions rebound to create a reaction of guilt or regret, that is a sin. It only indicates that you have made a wrong choice, which is coming back to bite you. So how do you destroy your sins? By developing a strong intellect which will help you make the right choices. Don't think that you have to hang upside down and God knows what else to destroy your sins. No. You have to elevate your awareness. Nature is very forgiving. It's not that the mistakes you have made in the past are irredeemable. No. You can redeem yourself. You have to learn from the choices you have made in the past so that going forward you make better choices. You make the good choices. So by elevating your own thinking, you destroy your sins. You reach a state of no worry, no anxiety, no stress, no regret. And as you grow in spiritual knowledge, you develop a sense of oneness, you develop a sense of empathy, you develop a sense of camaraderie with others. Your plurality around you reduces, the otherness reduces, the duality reduces. You treat others as you treat yourself. You treat others as you treat yourself, or you treat yourself as you treat others. One and the same. Will you treat yourself like you treat a stranger? Or will you treat a stranger as you treat yourself? Either you have to improve other standards or reduce your standards. One and the same. But that's how you destroy your dualities, by developing a sense of oneness with others. The capacity to feel what others are feeling, the capacity to put yourself in their shoes, the capacity to empathize, the capacity to serve, the capacity to revel in their joy, the capacity to feel the pain they are feeling. That's how you know your dualities are being destroyed, when you're able to see the oneness in all beings. Those who are self-controlled, we already talked about this in the beginning of the class, regulating and moderating your desires, giving it a high direction. And ultimately, what is your intent? You must learn to revel in the welfare of all beings. Not do welfare for all beings because scriptures have said you must earn punya. No, you're not doing welfare for others to earn punya. You must revel in the welfare of all beings. Revel means that should be your true enjoyment. You must learn to feel happy when others grow. See, this is not possible unless you feel a sense of oneness. This is not possible if you don't feel that this world is part of your family. How happy do you feel when your child succeeds? You revel in the welfare of your child. What is creating that sense of enjoyment? That sense of mindness. So we're not asking you to stop thinking of your child as your own. We are saying adopt everyone. Mentally. Your bills won't increase. Your bills will not increase. Adopt everyone mentally. See this entire world as an extension of yourself. See yourself as the owner of everything. Just because something is not yours on paper, you want something to be on yours on paper. When you start treating everything in the world as yours, it elevates you. Best thing is you don't have to pay stamp duty on it. Huh? To own something on paper, you have to pay stamp duty. But to develop this attitude, you don't have to pay stamp duty. Those of you who live in Gurgaon know what I'm talking about. 7%, 8% stamp duty. When you develop this sense of oneness with one and all, you revel in their welfare. These are the traits to develop if you want to be happy within, if you want to rejoice within, if you want to be illumined within. And these are the prerequisites for enlightenment. This is what the sages do. They don't hang upside down. You don't have to. You don't have to put yourself through torture. Is this torture? Anybody think this is torture? You don't have to put yourself through torture. Verse number 26. Kama krodha viyuktanam yatinam yata chetasam abhito brahma nirvanam vartate viditatmanam. Again, Brahma Nirvanam, Brahma Nirvanam, Brahma Nirvanam. He's only reiterating what are the qualifications for Brahma Nirvanam. Those who are freed from desire and anger, who are self-controlled, who have subdued their mind completely. Who have subdued their mind completely, who have realized the self, the bliss of Brahman resides in them. So he's only reiterating, he's only continuing with the same chain of thought. You free yourself from desire and anger. The first requisite is self-control. Through self-control, you regulate desire and anger, and ultimately free yourself from desire and anger. You elevate yourself from beyond it. When you grow, you drop the desire, and when there's no desire, there's no anger. Anger is a byproduct of desire, and all other emotions are a byproduct. They call them modifications of desire. But where there is no desire, so where there is controlled desire, there's less anger, there's less greed, there's less jealousy, there's less worry, there's less fear. When there is no desire, there's no anger, there's no greed, there's no jealousy, there's no fear. Right? You don't have greed for toys, you don't have fear of losing toys, you don't have envy of others having toys. Why? Because you're freed from the desire for toys. After all these years of being freed from the desire for toys, you have a child. And in that, having a child, the desire for toys is reignited in you. Why? Because you want desires for my child. So you grow envious of other children who have toys better than your children. Indirectly, you develop desires. So instead of them learning from you how to rise above desire, you sink. You fall into the trap of desire once all over again. But what I'm trying to say is that to overcome desire and anger, you first have to regulate and moderate, and then eventually drop the desire. When you drop desire, there's no anger, there's no modifications of desire. Who have subdued the mind completely. So, again, this may sound jarring to someone. Why is he talking about subdued the mind? Look, we talked about abstinence not being the way, right? Just as extreme indulgence is not the way, extreme abstinence is also not the way. You have to regulate, moderate. But eventually, there comes a time when he's talking about subduing the mind, he's talking about that state of meditativeness, right? So he's talking about a very highly qualified yogi who is then coming to subdue their mind, right? It's not particularly applicable to you and me. Subduing the mind, eliminating all chitta vritti, eliminating all stray thoughts, and directing the mind towards the single pointed concentration. That is meditation. So yogi who with all these attributes, all these qualities, all these virtues sits in the seat of meditation and subdues their mind completely, not partially, not momentarily, completely, for extended periods of time. Such a person in the depths of meditation realizes their self and attains the bliss of Brahman. The bliss of Brahman resides in them. So he's only reiterating that journey from yoga to uparati to dharana to dhyana, right? All the way till meditation, dhyana yoga. It's a state which hopefully you and I reach someday, right? Not particularly relatable to you and me today. Okay, so don't worry if it seems slightly out of reach. Verse number 27, 28. We have 5-7 minutes, everyone. We have 5-7 minutes. Anyone not having 5-7 minutes? Going once, going twice. Okay, we'll take the next 2 verses together and just one more verse before we conclude this chapter. Verse number 27 and 28. Sparshan kritva bahirbahyaan चक्षुश्चैवान्तरे भ्रुवोः प्राणापानौ समौ कृत्वा नासाभ्यन्तचरारिणौ यतेन्द्रियमनोबुद्धिः मुनिर्मोक्षपरायणः विगतेच्छाभयक्रोधः यः सदा मुक्त एव सः. So, having talked about the qualifications of a yogi to become a jnani, he talks about the practice of meditation. A yogi grows into sannyas and becomes meditative. That meditation, these are all the qualifications for meditation which we have been discussing for this past hour. And now sitting in the seat of meditation is the final gateway, the final spring to enlightenment. So he describes the seat of meditation. He says, shutting out external contacts and fixing the gaze as through between the eyebrows, equalizing the flow of incoming and outgoing breaths, having the senses, mind and intellect controlled, with liberation as the goal. The sage, free from desire, anger and fear, is verily liberated forever. So having done all that we talked about in verse number 23, 24, 25, 26, a yogi qualifies themselves for meditation. All the way you turn meditative, only a meditative mind can meditate. Only a meditative mind can meditate. So, having turned meditative, shut out external contacts means you have to go to a quiet and a place of solitude for meditation, because anything can disturb. Now, those who have had the practical experience will talk about it. Incidentally, I'm reading a book. I'm reading Om Swami's memoir of sorts. It is his memoir, right? In which he's talking very briefly about his journey, and he's talking about his experiences with a certain guru, and then he went to the Himalayas all by himself, and he dedicates a chapter or two to meditation and his journey of meditation. Now, of course, he's really glossed over it. He's not gone super deep into it, but he's talking briefly about the mechanisms and the intensity and the periods for which he was meditating, etc., etc. And therein he talks about how, first of all, he had to go to a place of complete solace, right? It's not mandatory to go to a completely remote place. If you can achieve relative solace wherever you are, different people have different circumstances, right? If you live in 7 Racecourse Road, is it what? Racecourse Road? What is it called? What does Prime Minister say?
Racecourse Road.
You live in 7 Racecourse Road, no soul is going to come close to you. You can meditate there. Problem is you'll have other things to think about. But anyway, so if you're living in a palatial home with no disturbance, nothing, in a tucked away away from the crowds and the main road. No sound, no disturbance. You can achieve a meditative environment where you are. That said, incidentally, he went to a place near where I have been. So it was quite wonderful, quite relatable. I was like, it felt almost close to my experience because he went near Gopeshwar, it's on the way to Badrinath, and there's a place called Anusuya Mata Mandir. There's Atri Muni cave, and then there is sort of a desolate sort of hut about 2 hours away from there. And recently I've been to Atri Muni cave. It's a wonderful place. So it felt relatable. But either way, he says going to a place of no disturbance. So shutting out external contacts. So when you're in this place with no disturbance, you sit. And elsewhere in the Bhagavad Gita, in the next chapter also, he'll talk about how to sit, with what posture, and what to be aware of. But once you sit, you fix the gaze as though between the eyebrows. It's like looking within. How do you look within? You can't turn your eyebrows backwards, but you sort of fix the gaze in between the eyebrows. You can't take the eyeballs completely inside, but you sort of try to point them within. And you regulate the flow of incoming breath and outgoing breath. So these are all the preparations for meditation, right? Of course, your senses are controlled. Your mind is controlled through a mantra. Your intellect is what is holding your mind in its place. And your only thought, your only goal, your only wish is liberation. No other thought. You don't want siddhis, you don't want wealth, you don't want health, nothing else. You want liberation. That is the only purpose of a sage. Free from all desire, free from all anger. There's no fear, there's no worry. Will I get enlightened? Will it happen? Will it work out? Complete surrender. That is the state which is required for you to be meditative. Such a yogi is liberated forever. दिल्ली थोड़ा दूर है, right? ये भी थोड़ी दूर है. We're on the verse number 29. भोक्तारं यज्ञतपसां सर्वलोकमहेश्वरं सुहृदं सर्वभूतानां ज्ञात्वा मां शान्तिमृच्छति. भोक्तारं यज्ञतपसां सर्वलोकमहेश्वरं सुहृदं सर्वभूतानां ज्ञात्वा मां शान्तिमृच्छति. Having known me as the enjoyer of sacrifices and austerities, the supreme Lord of all worlds, the friend of all beings, he attains peace. So in the depths of meditation, one attains enlightenment. Having known me as the enjoyer of sacrifices and austerities, the supreme Lord, Loka Maheshwara, Suhridam, the friend of all beings, Surit, the friend, Sarva Bhutana, such a person attains the infinite peace of enlightenment. This is the ultimate enlightenment, and this is also something you grow in awareness as you evolve spiritually. Even as you evolve spiritually, you recognize the role of divinity as the friend of all beings. You recognize the state of divinity as the supreme Lord, that unseen hand controlling everything. That's your suspicion, that's your conviction. You recognize the divinity, the Atman, as the enjoyer of sacrifices and austerities. Very interesting statement this. Know me as the enjoyer of sacrifices and austerities. First of all, when Krishna uses the term me, he doesn't mean the person Krishna, he means the Atman. He means the self within, God. So know God, know the self, know Atman as the enjoyer of sacrifices and austerities. Very interesting statement. What does it mean? The journey of yajna, sacrifice, and the journey of tapas, austerities. It's what takes you inward. It's what makes you introvert. It's what reveals to you the inner world. Without yajna, without tapa, you're living an extroverted life. You're living a life of indulgence. Through yajna, through tapa, you turn introvert. And you meet that inner version of you within. As you turn introvert, you meet a deeper side of you. You familiarize yourself with that which is sitting within. So he says, I am that. Know me as that. What you meet within you, I am that. The enjoyer of the sacrifices and the austerities. One that is watching as the body sacrifices, the body performs tapas. I am that inner being that you meet as you turn introvert. This is what a yogi will realize. This is what is called self-realization. And in this self-realization, you attain the highest peace. Beyond words, beyond theories, beyond concepts, this is the lived experience of thousands and thousands of sages who have roared this truth, who have repeated this truth time and time and again, directing us towards that experience. The purpose of our life, beyond everything, beyond managing our life and business and this and that, ultimately our purpose out here is to go within. So, if something is invoked in you by hearing these words or by reading these words, then follow the trail, stay on course, because that's the purpose of Vedanta, to take you through that, to that ultimate inner experience. With that thought, we'll conclude today and we'll conclude this chapter. Rightfully, this brings us to the cusp of Dhyana Yoga. So, the entire journey from karma, jnana karma sannyas brings ultimately to the threshold of Dhyana Yoga, to that state of meditation that we will discuss in the next class, chapter 6. But as is tradition, we'll chant the concluding mantra and then the first verse of the chapter to indicate that we will come back to study it once again, because all of you will agree that a lot of this chapter has flown over our heads. And even as we have heard it and maybe appreciated it partially, it will only help us to come back and study this again and go deeper in our understanding. Om Tat Sad iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Karma Sannyasa Yogo Nama Panchamo Dhyayaha. Verse number 1 of chapter 5. Arjuna Uvacha Sannyasam Karmanam Krishna Punaryogam Cha Shamsasi Yachreya Etayorekam Tanme Bruhi Shunishchitam. Okay, we'll conclude. Thank you so much for extending. I see there's a question. I don't know if Balaji, are you still here? And
Yes, Usaji. I removed it because of the time factor. Maybe I'll post it on next week.
Okay, great. But I can see Divyaji has a question. Well, I'm happy to share address now itself.
Lights taking off.
Okay.
Hari Om.
Bye. We'll talk about this in the next class. Have a good flight. See you, everyone.
Hari Om.